Perfect. Perfect. So let's get started. It's time. Thank you so much for joining us in this session. Here I have Juliano. And Juliano is going to talk to us about getting started with OpenTelemetry using the OpenTelemetry Demo. That's something that's very close to my heart because at Tyke, when we started to implement OpenTelemetry, we used the OpenTelemetry Demo to show the value and to use it to explain why it was necessary for us as an API gateway to have also instrumentation to have OpenTelemetry. So I'm really glad we have Juliano today, and the chat is open, Q&A is open, just ask anything, comment, and at the end of the talk, I'll monitor the chat and we'll get to it at the end of the talk. Juliano, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Sonia. Thank you. Thanks everyone for joining my session and for choosing this path with me. So as Sonia mentioned, I'll talk about how you can get started with OTel and how you can use the OTel Demo to kind of rescue in this journey. A little bit about myself. I'm a developer advocate at Datadog. Well, my name is Juliano. I'm a developer advocate at Datadog. I'm a CNCF ambassador, and I also run the Cloud Native Leans meetup together with a friend. And I'm an OpenTelemetry Demo maintainer. So my session is a bit biased because I kind of maintain the project. So I will tell people that is a nice way to start. So if you don't agree with me, please stay to the end and ask questions and let's discuss this. So before we start, let's just get a primer on what is OpenTelemetry. So to answer this, let's go back in time for a bit. So let's say that you have your application, and let's say we are 10, 15 years ago. And you want to monitor your application. You want to get observability into it. By the time, the only solution that you would have would be to go to either a vendor or an open source tool and then check how you could get telemetry data out from your application to somewhere. And either this tool or the vendor would say, hey, install this agent or add those instrumentation libraries to your application or add this code snippet to your application, and you will start getting telemetry data out of it. And what would happen in the end would be something like that. You would have a vendor within your application, and then this vendor would this component from the vendor would send the data to the vendor backend where you would see all the data. The important part here is that this vendor or this tool would use a proprietary protocol to send the data from your application to their backend. Let's say a couple of years passes, and you want to switch from vendor A to vendor B, or you want to try it out a different vendor or another tool that came up and has cool solutions. What would you need to do is kind of remove everything from vendor A and then add vendor B solution. And then again, vendor B also uses a proprietary protocol and then send the data to vendor B and so on. So if you need to change again. So this was a lot of painful for application maintainers. So the community kind of got together and said, hey, we need a standard for telemetry data. And just to sum it up a little bit, what happened was that two projects came up at about the same time, OpenTracing and OpenCensus, and they were trying to become the standard on telemetry data. Thankfully, both communities got together and said, hey, we should merge that in order to actually get a standard instead of getting two things that wouldn't be a standard. So thankfully, the two projects merged, and now we have OpenTelemetry as the standard. So what that actually changed in the area. So now we have the same scenario. You have your application, and you instrument your application with OpenTelemetry. So you want to get telemetry data out of your application. You would follow the steps that OpenTelemetry suggests for the programming language you are using. And the important part here is that now your application will produce the data in the OpenTelemetry protocol. And most of the vendors, if not all of them, today support OpenTelemetry protocol. So you could simply point your data to vendor A, vendor B, or vendor C, or even use a collector, which is another component that I will mention in a second, to, let's say you are doing a POC and evaluating tools, you could span the same data to 3 different vendors and analyze what you are getting. So it's really valuable to kind of see what you are getting from your telemetry data, what the value that the vendor is bringing to you, pricing, and all that stuff you can consider before actually buying the product. So really powerful there. And this was really a big change in the industry. So OpenTelemetry, what are the signals that we can capture with it as of today? So we have traces for the ones that do not know what a trace is. So let's think as a trace as think about it as a request that happens in your application, and this request does a bunch of operations. For instance, if you have an e-commerce system and the customer clicks on place order, this place order calls a bunch of other services, and all those calls are grouped together into this initial request. So you would have everything grouped together into one trace, and each of those operations would be a span, what we call a span in this context. So the example that I have here is everything starts in the front end post. It is actually a place order call to the checkout service, and then checkout service calls cart service, checkout service calls the product catalog service, and so on, till we have the shipping service, which will send the product and everything. So we can see everything that happened from the start of the transaction to the end of it. And when we get an error out of in the middle of that, we can actually see where the error happened. The second signal that we have are metrics, and I think everyone is familiar with CPU usage, system memory, network traffic, and so on. But in OpenTelemetry, what we can actually have is metrics in context. So you can analyze, for instance, my Go memory usage by the time that trace happened, or by the time of that transaction, which is really powerful because you can correlate the current state of your application during the time of that transaction. So if there is an issue, you can kind of see if that is because of something that was going on the underlying system and so on. But the third thing about metrics is that no instrumentation, no vendor will actually know about the things that are business related. So you would need to kind of create some business metrics. For instance, how many ads are being targeted and how many ads are not being targeted. So this is a custom metric and you can create with OpenTelemetry. I have also here an example on currency counter. So how many times my currency is being converted to each of those currencies, and also the payments per currency. So those examples are all business related and specific to my application. So there is no way of having an auto instrumentation out of it. The third signal, logs. I think everyone that worked with or ever wrote a Hello World app have done a log before. So you have the date, where that happened, severity. In my case here, I have all info. Which service is actually giving the log, and the log itself. So this is nice and everyone is familiar with it. But in OTel, again, what we do is that we add context to your log. So you would have the trace ID and the span ID to your log line. So then you can correlate the logs that happened within that trace. So this is really powerful whenever troubleshooting. So whenever, let's say that you have an exception or some error message that something that happened that wasn't expected in your transaction, you would see within the logs, but also where that happened, everything that happened before that log was thrown and everything that happened after. So you could even try to reproduce and replay that scenario. Fourth signal that the data model was just merged is profiling. This is we still have some time to actually have that in OpenTelemetry, but just to make you aware that the project is still growing. So we are adding new signals and new telemetry data into the project, and profiling is one example. Cool. We also have the OpenTelemetry collector, or OTel for short, on the OpenTelemetry part. And the collector is a vendor agnostic way of receiving, processing, and exporting telemetry data. So basically, you define which type of data you will receive. So let's say your application is producing OTLP data. Perfect, because it was instrumented with OpenTelemetry. That's great. But then you send that to the collector. In the collector, you can use processors to, for instance, to clean up PIIs and remove sensitive data if you want. Then we have connectors that are a component that you can use to kind of count metrics before, create metrics out of spans before sending to your backend or things like that. And the exporter, which allows you to kind of send the data to multiple backends, or you can configure the pipelines for traces, metrics, and logs, and say, hey, I want to receive the metrics in this format and then send to this format. And what happens in some vendors' case is that they use an exporter for the vendor to send the data to their backend. So the collector does the translation from OTLP to their protocol. Cool. So let's talk about the demo. That's why we are here. But before we jump in, let me share a bit how it all started to me. So I was working, before everything started, I was working on the online boutique, which is a project from Google. This project has an architecture, something like that. It is e-commerce as well, and it has 5 technologies. So I was working and changing some, at work, I was changing some services in order to add some errors and instrument some of the services with OpenTelemetry. And then I was in my journey learning OpenTelemetry, and then I said, you know what if I get rid of everything that is Google related from this project and instrument everything with OpenTelemetry? So that's what I actually did. So every night my wife went to bed, I sat on my laptop and started cleaning service by service and then instrumenting OpenTelemetry. I added a collector, I added a Jaeger there, and then I had everything instrumented plainly with OpenTelemetry. So why I'm actually sharing this, because when we decided to create the official OpenTelemetry demo, we kind of analyzed what were the forks that we had for this, because the online boutique was used as base. And every vendor had their own fork, but every vendor had vendor-specific stuff within their fork. And in the end, they chose to use my fork as base for the project. The project grew a lot, so it changed a lot. But yeah, I'm proud that mine was the base for it. Cool. And what is the goal of the OpenTelemetry demo? We have currently 3 goals. The first one is to vendors to actually use to test their solution on OpenTelemetry or their journey in OpenTelemetry, as Sonia shared before. So it's really nice to see that people are actually using it. The second is to onboard new people, and that's what I'm trying to sell here. So let's use the demo to kind of see how the solution works and how it works with multiple languages and stuff like that. And the third, and I think it's one of the cases that we most use, is to actually test OpenTelemetry releases itself. So every language has its own release cycle. So whenever there is a new version update, we update that release in the demo as well, and then we can see if there is anything breaking or something unexpected change. So we can also test the project with the OTel demo. Currently, that's the service diagram of it. So we can see that it changes a lot from when I started. Today we have 12 different languages. We have Kafka, we have an envoy proxy in front of it. All the services are instrumented with OpenTelemetry and producing traces for all the services, metrics for some of them, and logs for some of them. Mainly because traces and metrics are not implemented in other languages yet. Cool, so let's get our hands dirty. I have here, so I have here the demo actually already running. I will stop just to show how easy it is. So you go to the, while I'm stopping, we go to the OpenTelemetry Demo GitHub, we clone the repo, and that's it. We need to, if you have make, you can run make start. If you don't, you can run with Docker. So simply Docker compose up, which is the approach that I'm using. And that will start all the services and everything that we need to kind of get the demo running. It's a lot, but you do not need to worry about that at first. So hopefully I don't spend all my time here. Cool. So Docker compose down to make sure all the services are down and removed. And I'll Docker compose up. That will create my Docker network, everything, and I'll start up all the services. You do not need to keep looking at this. So let's take a look into what we get whenever we start the project. So you get a front-end app that's a React app. You have here a currency converter where you can choose a different currency, and that will change the price of the project, of the products. So let's say that we want a binocular and we want to pay in euros. Cool. So we have the price in euro here, shipping. We do not need to fill payment data, and we place the order, done. So great, we just bought a roof binocular. Great. Cool, but I don't want you to click around and do this. We also have a load generator that's generating the data, but I just wanted to show how the application actually works. This will send the data to Jaeger and by default to Grafana. So metrics and logs are in Grafana and traces are in Jaeger. So if I come here and, for instance, so here I see all the services in quote service. I can take a look here and see my span, and for instance, take a look into the quote service where I had the calculate quote and see my span attributes, resource attributes, and events. Logs are in Jaeger. Unfortunately, logs are not logs. They're actually OTel span events, but that's because Jaeger was created before and they didn't rebrand the naming that they had here. Cool. But as I said, so this the demo is running locally. I'm sending the data to Jaeger and Grafana, but I'm also pointing the data to Datadog. So I can actually take a look how the data would look in Datadog. So in here, I'm in APM service catalog. I can see all my services here. And if I take a look, for instance, in my quote service, that is the one that we just saw, I have metrics that is going on and distributed tracing. If I take a look into the traces, I will see all the traces that I'm receiving. And if I get one of those, I will, let's jump to the waterfall view. And the view would be something like similar to what we have in Jaeger, but in Datadog, I can actually see the correlation happening. So I have my info here from the span. I have the logs that happened in this trace. I don't know what is low, why is taking that long to load. Yeah. And if I take a look on checkout service, which is, yeah, I think I can even have runtime metrics. Yes. So I have here my runtime metrics during the time of this request. So this is super cool. Cool. But now let's take a look at the code itself. So we have here, hopefully the font size is big enough. It's a mono repo. All the services are under source, and we have all the services here. So basically, let's say that you are interested in the instrumentation for Java. So you would check the diagram, and Java is add service. So you would come here and take a look into what we are doing and how we are doing it, how we are doing the instrumentation. So the first thing that we have that all documented in under the OpenTelemetry IO. But what I wanted to kind of show here is that how we are actually doing. So for instance, here we fetch the Java agent from OpenTelemetry releases, and that's it. We are already instrumenting our application. But we also do some manual instrumentation. So if I come here, for instance, in my get ads, what I do is that I get the current span, and then I add some manual attributes, so those business attributes that I mentioned before, to my span. And then I can query those attributes in Jaeger or Datadog, for instance. So yeah, and you can actually see in the code how that happens, and then in the platforms that you want to test, how that is landing there. Another thing that I want to share is the OTel collector. So here we have the configuration of the collector, where we define receivers, exporters, processors, connectors, and the pipelines. And as you can see, I have like, I define which receiver I want, which processor I want, and which exporter I want for each one of the pipelines. And to make vendors' life easier, we also have an extra file that the vendors can put the vendors can add their specificities or what they need, what you need to configure to send the data to vendors. And this is great because what we can actually see now is that if we jump to the repo itself and take a look under demos featuring the astronomy shop, we can see a bunch of vendors that already did that for us. So for instance, if I want to take a look into how Datadog is actually sending the data, how I would send the data to Datadog, I can go to their fork and take a look into the OTel collector extras. And then here they're explaining how to do. And yeah, you can apply the same for all the other vendors. And yeah, so hopefully the vendors are keeping their forks up to date. And yeah, that's it. So let me move back here to my presentation. And I want you to go home with 3 key takeaways. So the first is that we finally have a standard for telemetry data. The second is it is all about correlation. So it's not about just instrumenting your code and getting the data, but correlating it, and then you will actually see the real power of your telemetry. And the demo is a good starting point. Thank you. And yeah, questions.
Thank you, Juliano. So we had one question that was about the OpenTelemetry collector from Miguel, saying, is the OpenTelemetry collector similar to Logstash?
I'm not familiar with Logstash, but I think Logstash, isn't Logstash focused on logs?
On logs, yeah, but I think it might have also kind of processing things in a similar way.
Okay, yeah, I'm not sure. So I'm not familiar with Logstash, but what the collector can do is that it receives, process, and it can also export. I don't know if Logstash can also send the data somewhere else. If it can, then would be something similar. Yes, if it has the support to all the possible exporters. So if we take a look at the OpenTelemetry demo and we check in under collector and configuration, we can see a bunch of receivers, processors, exporters, and connectors. And if I go to exporters, I have all those exporters here, but we also have, do we have all of them here? No, we also have the exporters under the OpenTelemetry contrib. So this is another
thing. You could maybe explain the difference between the OpenTelemetry collector and the contrib, because I think that's something people not always understand.
Yeah, makes sense. So the OpenTelemetry collector is the component, so the binary or the app that will have just the basic stuff for you to receive data, process data, and send data, but mainly focus on OTLP, which is the OpenTelemetry format. But if you want, so to avoid getting all the vendors adding their stuff into this initial well, actually, that's the same approach for all the languages. We always have the core REPL and the contrib REPL. So mainly the contrib REPL has all the vendor-specific data. For instance, if I take a look into the exporters here in the collector contrib, I have AWS stuff, I have Datadog stuff, I have Elastic stuff, and so on. So like all the vendors add their logic and their exporter receivers and all the stuff that they want to add to the collector in the collector contrib, and the core tries to keep it as small as possible, just with the core components and essential components.
Makes sense. I have another question. Can you maybe a bit explain more the difference between automatic instrumentation, manual, and when, in which case, which you use which of the options?
Awesome, great question. I actually had to remove that from my slides because it was too long, but I can show to you in the code here. So if I take a look into the ad service again, and in the Docker file, so adding this agent to my application would instrument all the libraries, all the libraries that that I have in my application, and that are supported by OpenTelemetry. So if I go, for instance, to my where is my file? My build Gradle. Here are my dependencies, and whenever, for instance, I have Netty here, I have gRPC, I have what else? I think that's it. So OpenTelemetry would auto-instrument those libraries for me. But as I mentioned before, the instrumentation of those libraries would be awesome to get, for instance, initial spans. So whenever I span starts and whenever I span ends, but all the business information, there is no way of OpenTelemetry knowing what is important to me in the end, like what I want to actually get out of the ad service. Okay, I want to know how long the transaction took to complete, but I also want to know what is the how many ads I got, how many of the ads are actually target and non-target. Where is it? So what are how many ads I'm getting? What is the response type? And all of those are manual. So that would be the manual instrumentation on top of it. So I do have the auto instrumentation, so I do not need to worry about the span creation, But once the span is created automatically to me, I can simply get the current span and then add the metadata that I need and the metadata that is valuable for me.
So you would always advocate for using first auto instrumentation and then complete with manual to get more business data reported?
Yeah, I would actually recommend watching so if you are on this track, I would recommend you watching the Adriana Villela's talk in the other track. There will be a recording out of it. So she also recommends taking a look into, or starting with the auto instrumentation, but the main point is start with the auto instrumentation, see what you get, and then I would go to instrumentation libraries where you actually specify which libraries you want to instrument. And then once you define this, then you just go and add the manual instrumentation or the manual part with the metadata that you want. If you do not need all those attributes, don't bother. Don't spend time over instrumenting your application. It's great to just have a start and end, and that's it. The auto instrumentation will do that for you, but try to do that in the, I always say that there are 3 ways of instrumenting: auto instrumentation, where you add an agent or a script; the instrumentation libraries, where you specify which library you want to instrument; and the third one, that is the manual approach. So if you want to do all the manual work, that will become really hard, and yeah, a lot of boilerplate code. You don't want to do that. So take advantage of instrumentation libraries and add the manual instrumentation where you want to get business value out of your code.
Cool, thank you so much. So we are out of time. If you have any follow-up questions, just go to the lobby and ask them there. And I also want to make a short advertisement to Carlos' session, because Carlos later on is going to do a demo of troubleshooting APIs using OpenTelemetry Demo and Tag together. So it's really tying up together and show you the power of OpenTelemetry and also using that demo. So have a good break and see you in the next session. Thank you, Juliano.
Thanks, everyone. See ya.